how does it feel about 20 years together and 8 studio albums and thousands of concerts? It feels great. It feels, in some ways, very surreal. Like, I can't believe we're still together. I can't believe that we're playing songs that we wrote actually when we first started. You know, going back to the days at Berkeley when John and I went there and met Mike, and you know, we're playing songs that we wrote at that stage, and then of course all over the past 20 years. So it's incredible, and I think we're all very blessed, and we're very fortunate to have such a long career, not only where we started in America, but all over the world. It's been wonderful. What's my favorite moment in Dream Theater history? Well, I definitely have quite a few favorite moments, but one of the things that is pretty memorable as far as being an exciting time was when we released Images and Words, probably because after the first record we really weren't sure where our home was. We didn't really have a record label. We were looking for a singer. There was a period where it was just a lot of hard work and, you know, a little trepidation as far as our future. And when that album came out and it started to become very successful, that was a very exciting and memorable time. And having the concerts being sold out, hearing the songs on the radio, you know, I think that's when we really realized, okay, this is something that's really happening. If I wasn't a professional musician, what would I do then? I don't know really how to do too much of anything else. No. I don't know. You know, when I was growing up, I had all my interests were always in the arts, you know, whether it be music, or I used to love to draw and paint, and I love writing, creative writing, and of course I turned that into lyric writing. So probably something in that field, I would assume. What is the concept of Octavarium? Well, first of all, we wanted this album to be a collection of many different styles and sides of Dream Theater, which is more of how we're used to writing. You know, we usually don't just do one type of style and have one direction. So we wanted to make sure that there were progressive elements, which is what we love to do and what we're known for, as well as some of the influence from the last couple of albums, like the heavier, more riffy things. You know, we wanted to mix it up, and I think in general the feeling was that we wanted the songs to be very, very strong. So when we were writing, we actually kind of stripped down and we sat there with piano, guitar, and vocal, and just made sure that the melodies and the structure was very, you know, that it was interesting to us, that it moved us, it sounded original, and it was creative enough where we all liked it. So that was a really important focus on this album. Is that everything is centered around 8. It's called Octavarium. It's our 8th studio album. There are 8 songs. There are 8 keys that create an octave. So those are all things that we didn't really go out there and advertise, but people picked that up pretty quickly. Was a conscious decision to make it more pop-oriented. There were certain songs that were consciously constructed, you know, to be, how can I say it? They're modeled off of bands that have influenced us in more of a pop and commercial way. You know, if you want to take more modern influences, it would be like Coldplay, for example. U2 has been around for a long time, obviously. We're all huge fans of U2. We have been for a long time. So that would be another sort of pop influence. You know, like I said before, we wanted this album to be eclectic, to be a collection of different styles. And from the very beginning, you know, from our first record, second record, third, you'll hear that. You'll always hear a variety. And that pop influence, I think whether or not some of our hardcore fans want to admit it or not, has been a part of our style. It's embedded in what Dream Theater is. I think that the funny thing about our band is that people identify with us in different ways. You know, there are some people that really, really like progressive music, and they're really into, you know, some bands that I never even heard of. Crazy time signatures and long songs and all that stuff. And then there are some people that really like us for the heavy side, that just think Train of Thought is the best thing, and they love the riffiness and Metallica and all that. And then there's some people that like the more ballad and the slow things. So, you know, it's hard. Like, whenever I get asked that question, it's almost like from an angle like, did you guys do something different in order to please other people? And the answer really is, I'm sorry, but no. You know, we write the kind of music we write because it's what we want to do. It's fun, it interests us, it keeps us creative and alive, and we always try to mix it up and keep it different. So that's a big part of who we are. The question is that some people say this album there aren't enough guitar solos. You know, once again, going back, the funny thing is, when Train of Thought came out, there were so many people that were like, you know, critically saying, oh, there's too much shredding going on, and it's too riffy and too dark, and then the next album comes out, and then people say it's not enough. And prior to that, people were saying, where's all the shredding? So once again, you know, it's not something where, you know, we listen to all this feedback, take it in, and say, okay, on the next album I'm just going to do this because people said it wasn't there. For us, we really do what suits the album, what suits the music, whatever sort of stage we're in our lives, what we're trying to accomplish. That's what matters. You know, are my lyrics getting more personal? They seem they're getting more personal as opposed to the earlier lyrics, and that is definitely true. When I first started writing lyrics for the band, I was very young. I was into writing about fiction, and making up stories and kind of creating these different types of worlds and scenarios. And I think when you're younger, it's a little bit more difficult to sort of tap into the personal side. And as I've gained experience, I find that it's more rewarding, and I'm more in touch with writing about my own feelings, my own reflections, my own philosophies on things that either I've experienced or other people have experienced, and I've, you know, sort of commented on. To me now, that's a lot more interesting than writing about mythology or something like that. You know, that's just something that's very, you know, that usually you find you do when you're very young and kind of immature. And now, you know, as you gain experience and wisdom, you can become a bit more deep. And they've taken a political turn, which is true. And the ironic thing, once again, when I was younger, I mentioned U2 earlier. You know, we've been into them for a long time. One of the things I used to, I didn't like, that turned me off, is I didn't like when they were getting all political and talking. You know, that used to drive me crazy. And the ironic thing is that now I kind of get it. I see what they mean, and I see how there are times when music is a place to sort of bring up those topics and to be a forum for that type of thing. I mean, some of the things that I've talked about having to do with religion and moral issues and stuff, they're a bit deep for like a normal rock and roll song, but, you know, I guess we're not the normal rock and roll band, so I think it kind of fits. As far as what's new in our presentation, certainly something that we discussed as far as how we wanted to present this tour. One of them is that the video portion has become an integral part of the show. So that's something that we started to do a few years ago, and we're going to continue to do that. So the different images and movies and little cameras showing our hands and stuff, we're going to continue to do that. It's going to be a big part of it. As far as other presentation type things, I mean, everybody in the band is always kind of adding new elements. Jordan has a whole kind of world over there he created with his big synthesizer and lap steel and different stands and things. And as far as our musical presentation, we are celebrating the fact that we've been together for 20 years, so you're going to hear many songs that span our complete career, from like the very first one to the very last one. Tour. How was it playing at Gigantour? It was cool. It was definitely very different than what we're used to. When we tour, normally we do an evening with Lately, where there are no other bands. There's nothing else to really deal with except for our own setup and our own comfort. And on Gigantour there were 9 bands. There was never a sound check, and we played for about an hour and a half. And you know, there's a lot of that that's kind of difficult to deal with, you know, but you just do deal with it, and it's fun. It's sometimes a little scary. And on the other side, it was cool because, of course, it was a tour during the summer. It's always fun to tour outdoor amphitheaters and venues during the summer. I think it was cool to be in more of a metal environment, which, like I said before, is something that a lot of our fans identify with. You know, we've always had the metal aspect to our sound, and I think to kind of be in that environment with all those types of bands, I think sort of gave us the credibility in that world. So I thought it was good.